Coca-Cola made $48 billion last year. It didn't build the factories, it didn't buy the trucks, it didn't even touch most of the water. So who's actually doing the work? And how is Coca-Cola getting rich off doing almost nothing? Stick around, because by the end, I'm showing you how one guy working out of his garage cracked a 139-year-old secret that Coca-Cola spent millions of dollars protecting. Once you see what he found, you'll never look at that red can the same way again. Here's the real story before we go deep. Coca-Cola doesn't really sell you a drink. It sells syrup to other companies and lets them do all the expensive work. Then it keeps most of the profit and hands off almost all the risk. That one sentence is the entire empire. Let's take it apart. Every Coke you've ever had passed through a bottler first, not Coca-Cola itself. Companies like Coca-Cola Euro-Pacific Partners, FEMSA and Arca Continental buy concentrate straight from Atlanta. They add the water, they add the sugar, they add the fizz. They also buy the trucks, run the plants and stock the fridges. Coca-Cola just ships flavour base in tankers and collects a cheque. One tanker of that concentrate turns into close to 2 million litres of finished drink. Coca-Cola's concentrate business runs gross margins around 60%. The bottlers doing all the heavy lifting average closer to 30%. Concentrate sales alone make up close to 59% of total company revenue. The rest comes from finished products and company-owned bottling in select markets. Same red can, same shelf, completely different economics. A few years ago, analysts pegged the actual cost of making one can at around 26 cents, not counting marketing. A restaurant pouring you a fountain Coke is often sitting on a 70% margin. You're not really paying for soda, you're paying for everything built around it. This setup now runs in more than 200 countries. People drink roughly 2.2 billion servings of Coca-Cola products every single day. That's about one serving for every 4 humans alive. Here's a fact most people get wrong. They think Coke is banned in just 2 countries, Cuba and North Korea. Since 2022, there's a third, Russia, after Coca-Cola pulled out over the war in Ukraine. Even there, it still slips in through grey market importers from China and Japan. You cannot build a wall high enough to keep this brand out. But scale isn't even the craziest part of this story. Coke isn't one product. It's the front door to more than $30 billion brands. Sprite, Fanta, Powerade, Minute Maid, Costa Coffee, all riding the same distribution network. That network handles more than 10 million deliveries a week, mostly on trucks Coca-Cola doesn't own. It owns almost no sugar farms and only a handful of bottling plants outright. When fuel prices spike or sugar gets expensive, bottlers feel it first. Coca-Cola still collects its concentrate check either way. The company sits on a balance sheet worth more than $100 billion, built mostly on brand value, not buildings. Its return on invested capital runs close to 30%. Pepsi, which still owns a lot of its own bottling, sits closer to 20%. Owning less, it turns out, made Coca-Cola richer than owning more. And this whole machine just changed hands. James Quincy ran Coca-Cola for 9 years, growing it into what insiders call a total beverage company, and adding more than 10 new billion-dollar brands along the way. In March of this year, he stepped down. Henrique Braun, who joined the company back in 1996, is now the CEO. He didn't inherit a soda company. He inherited the most efficient cash machine in consumer goods. None of that compares to what one shareholder has quietly made off this thing. Warren Buffett started buying Coca-Cola stock in 1988, right after the market crash. By 1994, he'd spent about $1.3 billion total for 400 million shares. He still owns every single one. Those shares now represent about 9.3% of the entire company. That stake was worth close to $28 billion by late 2025, and it's climbed even higher since. Berkshire Hathaway now collects around $816 million a year in dividends from Coca-Cola alone. Break that down, and it's roughly $26 a second landing in his account while he does nothing. Buffett has already collected over $11 billion in dividends. That's about 9 times what he originally paid. His shares are basically sitting there for free at this point. But none of that money explains the real twist, the one that happened just this year and should worry every company that thinks a secret can stay secret forever. Remember that guy from the start? His name is Zach Armstrong. Online, he goes by Lab Coats. For 139 years, Coca-Cola sold the world a myth. Only 2 executives alive know the full formula, and they're never allowed to fly on the same plane. Coca-Cola's own team has since admitted that part is mostly marketing. The real formula sits on a handwritten page, locked in a custom vault at the World of Coca-Cola Museum in Atlanta. Palm scanner, keypad, steel door, the whole theatre. In January 2026, Armstrong spent a year trying to break through that theatre with borrowed lab equipment. He used mass spectrometry and gas chromatography to break the drink down, molecule by molecule. What he found is almost funny. Over 99% of Coca-Cola is just sugar, caffeine, phosphoric acid, and caramel colour. A litre holds about 110 grams of sugar and 96 milligrams of caffeine. That's basically the whole drink. The vault, the guards, the myth, all of it protects less than 1% of the can. A handful of natural oils like neroli, coriander, and nutmeg. Armstrong even traced a specially treated coca leaf extract to one licensed company in New Jersey. He couldn't legally import it, so he swapped in wine tannins instead, and got close enough that testers couldn't tell the difference. One taster scored his version 9.5 out of 10. The video hit millions of views within days. Legally, Coca-Cola can't touch him for it. They never patented the formula, because a patent means publishing it for anyone to read. A trade secret only holds up until someone figures it out on their own, and that's exactly legal. So here's the twist inside the twist. Even with the secret basically cracked, Coca-Cola hasn't lost a single point of market share, because the formula was never really the product. The real product was always the brand, the bottler network, and being in more refrigerators than any company in history. Every year, Coca-Cola spends billions keeping that feeling alive in your head, long before you're ever thirsty. You can clone the syrup in your kitchen this weekend. You cannot clone 200 countries of shelf space or a century of Santa Claus ads. That's the part they don't teach you in business school. So next time you crack one open, remember what you're actually paying for. Not sugar water. That part costs pennies. You're paying for a brand so strong, it survived its own secret getting sold by a guy with a borrowed lab and a YouTube channel. If that's not the real definition of a moat, I don't know what is. If this changed how you see that can, follow for the next one. This rabbit hole goes way deeper than one video.